welcome to the channel. I'm going to be focusing mostly on UI design on here, so let's go into why you should not let yourself stick with terrible UI and always make sure to make the best UI for your games. Alright, now UI is one of the first things people are going to see inside a game as soon as they join, even if that's with a loading screen. So why would you let them see something terrible and get a horrible impression for your game? It just would not. Second point being is that most of your game should or somewhat needs to rely on UI to actually operate, and that can be through shops, trading, selling items and stuff like that. And as we can see with just Grow a Garden, for instance, there is lots of gameplay revolving around growing your garden, but without that UI you wouldn't be able to get the seeds and stuff like that to actually play the game. That being said, your players are going to be seeing it quite a lot, so you need to make sure that it's looking as good as it possibly can do and as stylized as you can make it. And in terms of keeping it stylized, there are quite a few options, and mostly it just relies heavily on the theme of the UI, which you need to set out with the client or yourself before anything, and you need to stick by it to keep consistency, because in UI design consistency is key. As far as the themes go, currently the most popular ones is sort of the bare bones older looking UI, but with a bit of its own stylization thrown into it, and it's not relying as heavily on strokes as it was in around about 2023-24. Other ones is sort of the anime UI popping around, and the more basic UI that you'd sort of see in an obby, but it's hyper contrasted or highly saturated to fit the rest of the game's theme. One of the things that I'm starting to see appear more and more, which I'm really liking, is it looks really basic and it's a basic modern UI, but it has enough shading and everything's placed perfectly, and you've got all the UI laws, which I'll go further into in a different video. All of them thrown together to make really consistent, really clean UI that doesn't impair the game and actually sort of adds to it with its simplicity. And that is mostly seen within shooter games, but not the type of shooter games such as Arsenal or Gunfight Arena. And kind of going off on that point, you can have as much stylization as you want, you can have it as clean as you want, but ultimately another thing that really adds is just the great design. Great design will get players to stay playing, and it will get players to convert into sales, and that's the most important thing for either you as a owner or developer for your own game or as a client's interest. And it's really in your own interest to make the best design you can for a client in order to get them sales for them. One thing that does make the UI stand out a lot more to the client, and in the game at least, is animations. But if you're like solely a UI designer and you don't do anything else, you can't really do that. So one thing you could do is sort of build your elements back in a video editing software and then sort of animate them to make it look as if it's in a game, and to add a little bit of spark into it, and that will sort of show the client what it can look like, and it'll also give a good idea of what your UI can hold up to. And again, it sort of goes back to the idea of driving the sales. If it's a monetized area of the UI, such as a shop or anything like that, you'll always see now they all have lots of animations and particles and stuff like that, and it's because it looks more shiny, more clean, more new, and it will drive all of the sales if it looks good. It's more trustable, which is another law of the UI design and design in general. The trustability of your design means everything, and the credibility, legibility, and how trustable your design is can do absolutely everything for you, including getting clients or getting sales from players. And sort of building on that point, yes, of course, when a player buys something, it's going to get given to them, but if your design looks more trustable, that player has a higher chance of converting into a sale because they trust you in making a good product based off of the design you made for it or the design around it. It all adds up and builds up, and it can really help get you some return on investment in your game design or in your game in general. Now I want to start speaking about a different point, which is the navigation of your UI. It can be a huge pain to make hundreds, or not hundreds, but tens of different frames rather than putting all of it sort of in one panel. For instance, a shop, there are separate parts of a shop, which could be a rebirth shop, token shop, and Roblox shop. But if you make it easier to navigate with having different frames, like you might see a bar on the right side, the left side of it, where it shows what part of the shop it is that you're clicking. If you do that rather than making the player scroll all the way down, it will work out so much better. It will cost less time for the player because what they want to do is play and get straight back into the game, and also make it much more easy for them to get to exactly what they want. There's also the hierarchy, where if you're trying to drive the sales, you would want that Roblox shop at the top of the list and at the highest priority, and after that whatever else. And having all of these different frames can be a pain to make because you're essentially having to remake the frame each time, but literally all you have to do is duplicate the standard one that you started out with and then change a few things. It's not that hard and it will add so much. And showing this through Photoshop, you can just do the same thing and you can add it back in as a smart object with a transparent background to make it look better for your client, because then it's showing the consistency through the design. It looks like a lot more than it really is. Alright, now I think to keep this video a little bit shorter than it probably should be, I'm just going to say one of the most important things you can possibly learn for design, UI design, and just design in general is learning the laws of design and UI design. There's so many laws that are backed by research from user experience research and stuff like that that can really be applicable to every design, whether that's the standard GFX that we see in the RoDevs and Hidden Dev server, which is really just a myth sort of name for it. Graphic design in general, these laws apply so well to everything, like the color theory, and actually, you know what, I'll just explain more in a different video. So for that, make sure you subscribe so you can see that when it releases, which should be in around about a week. And for now, I'll just see you next time.